Hello guys, I am back from another video, and today it's about what if Deku never got one for all. So in the last video we talked about how, we got into a different perspective, in this case Mirko, which after she lost her quirk she would fall into depression, and after a while basically talking to herself, and after basically believing that she can become strong because, Izuku being quirkless even though he's quite strong. And after knowing of this, she would get the resolve to try and, at least become, a better person. And she would be visited by her chosen, heroic spirit. In this case, Oda Nobunaga, which in this case is a girl. Yeah, taking it from fate, obviously. So, she would basically train under Oda Nobunaga and learning how to use her noble phantasm, otherwise known as Demon King's frontline formation, which allows her to basically summon in a fuck ton of, rifles. And I'm not even kidding, that's basically what her, noble phantasm is. She can just basically spam guns. So, after learning of all of these techniques from her, she would basically, Oda Nobunaga would basically disappear, going back into the Throne of Heroes, just like Kokolin. So, leaving only a red spider lily, which she wore proudly as a memento for her, sensei, or her teacher, or the heroic spirit that taught her how to use her powers or whatever. So, as we moved on to Mount Lady, as apparently she was working at a job, specifically a simple ass office job, I guess you can say that. But unfortunately she was fired because of the harassment that's been happening, and also a bit of corruption. She would basically fall into depression just like Mount Lady, but she was contemplating suicide. But she wanted to at least try and be better after knowing that, Izuku's just like not Mount Lady, I meant just like Mirko, she knows that Izuku's quirkless, but he is strong, and basically just doesn't care about being quirkless. And so she has the resolve to basically keep living. And thanks to that, her heroic spirit, aka Nero Claudius, or at least the wedding version of her, that is what I was talking about last time, the wedding version of her, which, unlike her, regular form, which is a 4-star, and also just wearing a regular old, red dress, in this case, she's just wearing, a wedding, almost a wedding style, suit, or dress, or whatever. And after learning from her, and also using her noble phantasm, which I'm just going to say it out loud because, I'm probably gonna butcher it, so why not? So, I'm probably gonna butcher this, but I think it was called, Louis Saint Claudius, which allows her to just basically burst out a ton of flames and flowers behind her. So, that's basically her noble phantasm, and when she does learn it, as for Saint Claudius, or, Nero Claudius, she would also disappear after her training. After doing this, she would also realize that, Satanta, aka Izuku Satanta, is actually Kokolin. Because after searching up the name, Satanta, which, after seeing his last name, or hearing his last name, she was, pretty much curious. And after learning of his last name, which is also the original name for, Kokolin, she would connect the dots, realizing that Kokolin is actually Izuku. So, after knowing of this, she wants to meet up with Izuku once again, so she can change the world with Izuku, making a world where both quirkless and the quirk users can work together. And we ended off that note at the end of the video. So yeah, so that is basically what happened last episode, and so let's talk about what happens next. So, we're gonna be moving to a different perspective. In this case, Mei Hatsume. After getting her quirk stolen by All For One, it didn't really change anything. I mean, her quirk is basically just useless at this point. I mean, she can just see things from far away, so unfortunately, it's not really a useful quirk unless if you're an inventor, just like, Mei Hatsume. And it doesn't really, bother her because, after all, she could just invent like something to act similar to her quirk, so she does. And even though she's quirkless now, she doesn't really care. And after knowing of Izuku being quirkless a few, their first time meeting, she would be, well, how do I say this? Like, inspired by him. And because of this, she wants to become even more, determined to, at least to become like, how do I say this? Much more magnificent to say the least. She wants to bring smiles to both the quirkless and the quirk users. Because after getting herself, no longer having a quirk, she would start working harder and harder. And her sensei, specifically the hero which I'm not gonna name because I keep forgetting his fucking name, well, he would be impressed knowing that even though she's quirkless now, she doesn't really care and still is determined to become an entrepreneur with her, hero gear. So, one night in particular, she's still late at night tinkering with more devices as she would hear something in the corner of her, like something in the corner. She would hear something slam into the ground as she would look over and see a large, motor, specifically for, like, a car, basically just, like, fallen down. As she would say this, "Ah, crap." As she would start, well, trying to get this thing off, basically started, like, trying to carry this thing to put it back on its, table, but she can't as she's basically in deep shit. Not only that, there's, I don't know, how do we say this? Wait for a second. I don't know what's the actual name of that thing, but it's basically like this liquid that basically just makes the, gears and things like that basically run much easier. Like, for example, like gears that are still, creaking or something like that, they would just, add that and basically just, works pretty much magically back together. That's basically what it is. As she would say this, "Crap, crap, crap, my dad is gonna kill me," as she would start grabbing some things, mostly towels and, a mop, to basically start cleaning the entire area. As she would say this, "God fucking damn it. I should probably get some sleep. And probably eat dinner first. It's been a long time since I've seen Izuku-san." She would basically sigh as she would start going downstairs, as she would think in her mind, I wonder where is Izuku-kun. I meant like Izuku-kun, not Izuku-san. So don't worry about that. As she would say this, I really want to see him again. She would basically start to pout as she would realize that his father, or her father, is basically not here yet, as she would say this. I wonder where's Dad. I'm super lonely. She would basically go into, starts grabbing some things from the fridge and sees some leftover, ingredients for a pizza. As she would say this, well, it won't hurt, well, to try. So, she would start using some of the leftover ingredients, mostly, onions, some tomato sauce, which probably is outdated or something, probably, expired. Maybe she doesn't know, she doesn't even remember how many days it's been, in there, but she does care that, she's quite hungry. So, she doesn't really care if it's what is that called? Fuck. Wait for it. Doesn't really care if it's rotten or something. The only thing that she cares about is her, rumbling stomach. She would see some leftover luncheon meat, maybe leftover meatloaf or something. She would find some meatballs that were meant for, a spaghetti recipe, but is her father didn't really decide to make that. So she would decide to add that to that, mash up a pizza. So, after getting all of her things ready, she would start bringing it to the large, oven for pizzas specifically. So, after she puts it in, she would basically start to wait. After a while, she would basically try and basically get it out. When she does, well, it would flop down on the floor as she would say this. Fuck. So, she would start to grab it, and realizing that the pizza's almost kind of ruined, she would start to fix it once again by putting it back into the, oven. And yeah, let's just say that this pizza is basically just like, made from expired and probably rotting food, and maybe, a bit overcooked. So, she would start looking at it as she would say this. I mean, it's not my finest work, so she would start to eat it as she would say this. It's better than nothing. I don't really know how to fucking cook, and I'm supposed to be a girl. Fuck. As she would start to eat it, after a while, she would decide to go back to bed. After going to bed, she would basically be in a dream. So, in this dream, she would feel that she's in some sort of workshop. She would start looking around, seeing several mechanical, almost magnificent machines basically on work. They seem to be robots or something basically flying around, each with several magnificent colors like gold, blue, red, basically every color of the rainbow. As she would hear the sounds of humming like as she would start going towards that noise. As she would look over, seeing like a pile of mechanical parts, she would basically pull them apart as she would see a woman, specifically a woman that seems to resemble the Mona Lisa, tampering with several machinery as she seems to be making some sort of flying machine, which, when she does finish it, it starts to fly. Almost magnificently, almost like it was, perfectly planned, as she would say this. Whoa, this workshop is amazing! As after she said that, well, the woman that almost resembles the Mona Lisa would basically hear this, as she would say this. So, you're my chosen. It's nice meeting you, fellow inventor. As she would say this. Sorry, but, mind telling me who you are? I'm also quite sorry for, haha. As she would say this. Don't mind me, dear. You may call me David. As she would wake up, hearing the sound of her alarm clock, as she would say this. That was a weird dream. I knew I should have not eaten that pizza. I meant pizza. God damn it, my dyslexia is coming back to me again. Anyway, so, after waking up, she would say this. I knew I should have not eaten that pizza. Now I feel sick. She would basically, start feeling her stomach basically growling, but not in the hungry way, and more like, please, for God's sake, go to the toilet way. So, she would do as after she'd gone back into the toilet, or at least flushed the toilet or whatever, she would basically start to leave the bathroom as she would hear, well, the noise of her father. Her father would say this. Hey, daughter, May, I want you to come down here for a second. As she would say this. What is it, Dad? As she would look over and see the woman from her dream. As he would say this. Oh, it's nice to meet you. It's been a while since I seen my little daughter. And say hello to your little friend. She said that she's a friend of yours. Mind telling me who you are? As she would say this. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you my name. You may call me Leonardo. Leonardo da Vinci. As she would bow, as both of them would basically just look at her, as one of them would say this, being, Mei Hatsume, Mei's father, which I'm just gonna be calling Mr. Hatsume, because remember, I used to call him Mr. Hatsume at that time, so why not? So, Mr. Hatsume would say this. Wait, your name is Leonardo da Vinci? I thought he was a man. Not, or at least I think that he was a man. I mean, I heard stories that he looked like, the Mona Lisa, which you kind of look like her. As she would say this, oh, I get that a lot. Anyway, I probably know that you're, probably late for work or something. As he would start looking at his, watch that he had, as he would say this, oh yeah, I forgot. Sorry, my, little May, or my little child. I'm gonna be leaving now. Bye. As she would see that her father is basically getting his, briefcase as he would start to leave, grabbing his coat and hat. As May would say this, so you're that woman from my... As she would say this, yep, I'm that woman from your dream. Otherwise known as your heroic spirit. A woman, or more specifically, I used to be a man. But now, formed into the new world. This world has certainly have changed, especially it comes to the quirkless, or just regular old humans in general. As she would say this, how? I thought Leonardo da Vinci was a painter or something, as she would say this. Yeah, I get that a lot, but in fact, I was a bit of both. I'm both an inventor and also quite a beautiful painter. And the reason why I look like, the Mona Lisa is because I was enthralled by her beauty that I decided to become her and become the embodiment of her. And yes, I used to be a man. So, why? As she would say this. So, and what is this, the heroic spirit business, or as she would say this? Hey now, I'm just here to tell you something. Kid, I heard that you're quirkless, right? So, why not, I don't know, maybe teach you how to wield my power. As she would say this. Your power? As she would say this. Oh, yes, I really forgotten to tell you this. I'm not just a heroic spirit. I'm also your chosen heroic spirit. The one that will teach you how to become a chosen. Meant to save this world. Meant to bring forth revelation. Or should I say, a revolution. A revolution for those that are being oppressed by these so-called heroes. As she would basically, she would start posing in a dramatic way, basically. As she would say this. That's crazy. I mean, how am I supposed to believe? As she would say this. Oh, don't worry. I'll give you the explanation. So, she would basically explain about the whole heroic spirit thing and the whole business between Alaya and Gaia. And after that little short story, not technically short because I technically shortened it, but just imagine just imagine it that they were just talking a while, and I mean a while. As after she told all of that information, she would say this. So you're telling me that her brain is basically fried at this point, as she would say this. Yeah, that's a lot to take in. But don't worry. I'll be teaching you how to use my power. The power of... As she would snap her fingers as the area would change, transforming into her mindscape, transforming into the same workshop that she dreamt of. As she would say this, my power of invention, my power of inspiration, as several machines would basically light up in response of her voice, as would start activating. As she would say this, whoa, this is amazing. I always dreamt of becoming, or at least having a workshop just like this. As she would say this. Yeah, and that is why I'm planning to give this all to you after our training. As she would say this. Wait, really? As she would say this. Yep. So, I want you to train first. As she would say this. Train? What do you mean by that? As she would basically grab her own gauntlet. Being the one from the game, as she would say this. Thank you, but what is this? As she would say this. Oh, That is one of my inventions. In fact, it used to be my noble phantasm, but now I'm giving it to you. Not technically, it's not technically my personal noble phantasm. It's just a conduit for it. As she would say this. Conduit? As she would say this. Oh, don't worry. I'll be explaining it to you maybe like, how about like a few weeks? So, it's been a few weeks as she's been training under, Da Vinci for a while now. She would basically learn how to create, how do I say this? She would learn how to make her own versions of, mystic codes. Thanks to the help of Da Vinci basically teaching her how to use, like, spiritual particles, which I'm not going to be explaining what spiritual particles are because, Nasu, stop shoving your face up your ass several times. Like, stop it. You're just making the entire Fate series even more confusing. And that's just saying a lot. Anyway, so, after a while of basically training her, she would basically ask this. So, you're finally ready. She would give off this nice laugh as she would say this. Yeah, I really did. So, Da Vinci, what are you going to do then? As she would say this. Oh, I'm probably going to be leaving now. After all, the counterforce is probably telling me to go back. Especially if it comes to Alaya. As she would say this. Wait, really? Then you're actually leaving? As she would say this. Yeah, unfortunately. But don't worry. We'll be meeting again in probably another life. Eh? As she would basically just like flick her finger up her, points her finger and basically flicks it onto her, forehead. As she would say this. Ow, what was that for? As she would say this. Don't worry, May. Besides, maybe we will meet again. In another life. Or something of the sort. But either way, I already teached you all of my things. Teached you how to use my power, so it's basically over. So, make me proud. Eh? Mayatsume? As she would say this. I will make you proud. Sensei. As she would basically bow down, as she would say this. Well, I guess you should probably go back. So, after she snaps her fingers, she would be brought back to her, room, as she would realize it's been, a week ever since she basically, left to basically train with, Da Vinci. As Da Vinci would say this. Bye! As she would basically disappear, and only thing that was left is her large staff. So, after May basically sees this, she would say this. I will make you proud, Da Vinci, Sensei. She would basically grab her, grab Da Vinci's, staff and starts waving it around. As several of the objects around her room, mostly things that are mechanical, as she would start thinking of exosuit. So, when she does, the exosuit would basically be created from all of the, mechanical parts that she left in her room. And it looked exactly what she imagined. She imagined it as a steampunk type of, mech. As when she does, she would see in front of her the steampunk-like mech that she imagined. She would basically try it out, and it would be exactly to her liking. All of the joints, all of the parts, including the weaponry, looks exactly just like in her mind. She would say this. I'm one of the chosen, and I will bring forth revelation. A revolution towards both the quirkless and the quirk users. I will make this pay. I will make this world pay for hurting others just like Izuku back in his life. His life when he was weak. She would basically smile as she would say this. But for now, I should probably get some sleep. My training was a bit, tiring, so... Night. she would basically fall down onto her bed as she would fall asleep. The next day comes as she's basically roaming through the, wait for a second, roaming through the city as she's basically just like looking around, looking at all of the stalls that are basically around, as she would see the shops basically opening up because it's basically early in the morning. She's basically excited knowing that she's basically one of the chosen, and she's basically has a, well, power that's even greater than a quirk, in fact. So she's basically excited to try this out. But she does know that, Da Vinci would basically tell her back in her training that she's going to be meeting up with, many of the other, chosen maybe soon. So she's basically just like walking around, doing some stuff, as she would bump into some familiar faces. She would basically stumble back as she would see in front of her Mount Lady and Mirko, as Mirko would say this. Oh, hey kid. As she would say this. Wait, Mirko, the number 6, as she would say this. Sorry kid, but I'm no longer the number 6 hero. Remember? In the training camp? As she would start to look, as she would see that her signature bunny ears and bunny feet are basically gone. As she would say this. Oh, yeah. You're quirkless just like me. As Mount Lady would say this. So what are you doing here, kid? As she would say this. Oh, yeah, I'm just looking for some new parts. Specifically for a new invention of mine. As Mount Lady would say this. So you're still a part of the hero course? Not the hero course, I meant the, support course. As she would say this. Yep, I don't really mind all of the staring thanks to, being quirkless, but I still want to become an inventor. Want to create, hero items to save people and make, people stronger. As she would basically blush, basically saying that, as she would say this, being, Mirko. That's a pretty nice dream, kid. Anyway, so are you perhaps going somewhere? As, wait for a second. As May would say this. Oh, I'm going to that shop over there. As she would basically point behind them. As you would see a shop that basically says Bill's and, Paul's, let's just say, like, Bill's and Paul's, like, mechanical wares and tears or whatever. As she would say this, being, Mount Lady. Huh. So you absolutely love inventing. As she would say this. Yeah, I guess you can say that. So, she would basically start going to that shop, as one of them would say this, being Mirko. Hey, kid. As she would say this. What is it, Mirko? As she would say this. Oh, I'm maybe planning to go there because I'm maybe planning on, like, souping up a gun. As she would say this, being, Mei Hatsume, as Mei Hatsume would bring out her, how do I say this, like, her eyebrow would basically start to raise as she would say this. Guns? I never thought that you were the gun-blazing type. As she would say this. Oh, I'm starting to get used to, guns and things like that, ever since I got my, quirk stolen. As Mount Lady would say this. Yeah, I'm also planning to go there. I'm just looking for some supplies. For, cosplay. Yeah, I'm doing cosplay now, ever since I became, quirkless. They would basically, like, both of them would, basically laugh. And, by the way, both of them, specifically Mirko and Mount Lady, don't even know that they're also chosen, so unfortunately they didn't know. So, they would basically start going into the shop as they would see several, like, mechanical, like, parts, and some, miscellaneous stuff, like, for example, zippers, and also cloth, and many other things. So, they would start going into the shop, basically grabbing some stuff. After they bought all of their things, they started to leave. And while they're about to leave, one of them would decide to go into the back alleyway, knowing that it's probably pretty dark, but is also pretty much a shortcut. One of them would say this, being, Mount Lady. Hey guys, we should probably go over there. I heard it's a good, shortcut. as one of them would say this, being, Mount Lady. Not Mount Lady, I meant Mirko. Really? I never thought that you'd be the, daring type. I mean, you used to be so afraid of, like, germs and things like that. And that place is definitely not the type of place that you don't want to go. As she would say this. Yeah, but, I'm starting to get used to things like that. After all, I'm starting to become a, the cosplayer, yeah. As she would say this. You certainly have changed, eh? I meant Mount Lady. As Mirko would say this, yeah. As, May would say this. Guess I'll go with you guys. Besides, two of you guys being former heroes is going to be pretty easy. Besides, because of your beauty, it's going to be pretty easy for me to basically just, like, run away in case of, like, something happening. As both of them would basically glare at her, as they would say, "What are you even thinking about?" As she would say this, "Oh, nothing." Being, Mei Hatsumi, she would start to laugh a little bit, as all of them would laugh as they started going into the back alleyway. So, they would start seeing the back alleyway, as the back alleyway would basically be, how do I say this? Like, pretty dark. There's so many graffiti all over the walls, it's filled with mold, moss, and it smells like literal hell. Hell on steroids, to be more precise. So, they're basically going through this alleyway as they would, well, feel like something is basically watching them. As Mirko would say this, guys, I can definitely feel like somebody's watching us. As, Mount Lady would say this, don't say things like that. I mean, it sounds weird, and as, well, May would say this, yeah, please don't say that. I mean, I feel kind of afraid being here anyway, so I don't want to intensify my fear even more because of your little comment. As she would say this, being, Mirko, but still, as one of them would say this, being Mount Lady. Anyway, we should probably continue as a figure would drop to the ground. As everybody would basically, basically leap and see the figure. The figure being Jack the Ripper. As she would say this. So, you're the rest of the chosen, eh? So, I didn't know that all of you guys are I didn't know that all of you guys were girls. I thought one of you would probably be a boy. Or two. Or three. As one of them would say this. Who the hell are you? Says Mount Lady. As she would say this. Oh, don't worry, my fellow chosen. And besides, I know that all of you are also chosen. Chosen by the Counterforce. Otherwise known as Alaya, right? As all of them would be basically just like leap up, as one of them would say this, being, Mirko. Wait, both of you are also chosen? As you would basically just like she would basically point her fingers at both of them. As Mount Lady would say this, you're chosen as well? As you would start pointing at, at, wait for a second, at May, as May would say this, you're chosen as well? I didn't know that. As they would basically start like pointing at each other, basically asking how are they chosen or things like that. As Jack would say this. Alright, all of you guys. Whatever. Anyway. I want all of you guys to go to this location. Because this is quite important. We're gonna be having a meeting with the rest of the other chosen. After all, our old comrades were basically killed, and after knowing that the other chosen basically found new ones, well, we want to find them immediately. Because I have a plan. A plan at finally showing the world how cruel, how unfair this world really is. So, come to this location. Maybe tomorrow. As they were given a piece of paper. Basically, it's basically coordinates to, that location in particular. As she would say this. So, Hope to see you again. She would basically disappear as she would disappear in black smoke or fog. All of them would wait for a second, goddamn the noise. All of them would be confused after knowing of this revelation that all three of them are chosen. As Mirko would say this, are we really going to? As Mount Lady would say this, yeah, let's do this then. As wait for a second. What's there? As May would say this, yeah, let's do it. I mean, she does kind of look nice in a psychopathic way to say the least, but still, as she would say this, being Mirko, sure, tomorrow, let's go to this place. As all three of them would basically agree, as they would exchange numbers in case of basically it's time now, or in case of it's finally time for them to finally go there. So yeah, all of them would basically leave, as all three of them would basically go back to their homes, as they would basically fall asleep because it's basically nighttime or something like that. I don't know. So yeah, this is going to be the end of this episode. So yeah, I hope you liked the video, comment and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye bye!